Hey y'all, it's Wyatt Bang, and welcome to Bang Up Media. Today I'm really excited about sharing this short film on a special place that I spent 2 years at. But before we dive into it, I'd like to thank Allegany for giving me the chance to partner with them in this. Much of the credit goes to Chief Albert Stoltzfus, who captured the video and compiled the storyline. And now, let's get after it.
When I think about a real man, I think of someone who's focused. He has a direction that he's going. There's a trajectory that defines his life. He's got to be on his feet, going somewhere.
How does a boy learn how to be a man, or to be masculine? I mean, for most of us, I know for me, the first place that I learned that was watching my dad and grandpa. How did they live life?
Men were doers. Men were men that got things done and were able to take care of the people around them, provide for them.
How did they treat the ladies in our family? How did they interact with the rest of the community?
It looked like my dad, I guess. Whenever I thought of manhood, and a lot of the men around, I had a lot of good men around me, and the thing that they were doing, working hard, getting up early, being responsible, being leaders.
My dad was he was faithful. Like, he got up and went to work every morning. He took our whole family to church every Sunday, and he was faithful, and that seems to me to be a key element of being a man. Learning to work through hard problems and talk about hard things.
Learn to make friends, what it means to be a friend. Learning how to interact with a fairly high pressure, some days at least, fast-paced environment, and be able to do okay with things changing. Learning to contribute to a work schedule, learning to put a shelter over their own head. Just learning to be a problem solver.
When we think of courage and strength, I don't mean like tough guy, I've got everything put together, as much as just a willingness to move into the world and, like being willing to, sometimes that means facing my own problems and stuff. Courage and strength and willingness to initiate, those are things that come to my mind when we're talking manhood.
It's the stuff that you don't even hardly talk about too. They just go out and do it. Somehow it seems like men aren't taking leadership. They're not they're not speaking into the problems that are going on.
There's all kinds of things in this world to kind of take a pass and say it's not really my responsibility. There's too many men in this world that just sit and watch the world go by and expect everyone else to pick up their loose ends.
One of the most important things probably as a man for me to help out society is just being a hard worker. I mean, that's one thing, being willing to work hard, providing for a family, both physically and spiritually and emotionally, taking care of my wife and kids. And I think when men are doing that, it provides security for children that in turn ends up helping society. I think what I hear a lot is parents are wanting their sons to be responsible. They're wanting their sons to, when it comes to like schoolwork, they're wanting their son to take initiative instead of having to always be pushed. And when it comes to the family, they're wanting their son to help with chores around the house, to help be contribute something to the family rather than just expecting everybody to do something for it.
I think often, a boy realizes that, something needs to change here if it's going to keep working. And so he's looking for ways to be able to just work with his family, work with his school, work with his environment, and be able to be successful at home.
I learned lots of things about personal responsibility. They make their own tents, they cut their wood to keep them warm in the winter, just do a lot of things that they're going to have to do later on in life when they have their own family.
Our forefathers came over to this country, and the famous Oregon Trail, the pioneers who went out west to look for a new land to farm and to raise their families. those men persisted in those difficult times to try to provide something for their families, for their wives and their children, for the future. And so I like to think camp is a little bit of connection to that, in the way we, build our own shelters. We cut our own firewood, cook some of our own meals.
The role that a man should fulfill in society is to be the protector, to be the provider, and meeting the needs of his children and meeting the needs of his wife is what society needs.
In the future, we want to stay with our wives. We want to stay with our children and raise them. We want to meet their needs, protect our communities.
A lot of boys come feeling like they're doomed with their problems, that they've been trapped in this crazy cycle for so long that there's no way out. And so for them to actually start solving problems, that it feels like the backpack weight of problems that they're carrying on their back, I think it feels good to them when that weight starts lessening. They're actually successful with it. When a boy learns to face his own problems, and he's actually successful in solving some of those problems and in changing himself, I think that it really does something for his manhood. If he can be successful in solving problems on his own problems, then he ends up, it makes him feel like a man, and it makes him feel like he can tackle the world.
One thing it takes to become a man is to be healed yourself. We all pick up garbage as we go through life, and we believe lies from that, and that affects our emotional being. Once we can work on healing those emotional pains, then real manhood can start.
One of the first things I think I usually see is just a different life in their eyes.
I love to see a boy make progress, learn to respect his parents, learn to respect his chiefs, learn to respect people in his group, take care of the people around him, including himself. Learn to respect himself and others.
I just often see a lot of boys come to life just living out in the woods.
One thing we talk about a lot here at camp is we like to plan, do, and evaluate, and we do that with everything. We start by just maybe getting a plan for the next hour, the next activity we're going to do, and we also sit down every 6 months and plan ahead for the next 6 months. So there's a lot of planning that happens, and so we kind of go through that process, in an hour's time or in 6 months' time, and so we get a chance to just kind of do that over and over again and see, if we had a good plan to start with, or what we should have done different.
One thing that I see happening at camp that prepares men for manhood is simply being responsible, learn how to do the simple things of life well, and from that we learn to be responsible in the bigger things of life.
Some of the things we do are lots of fun and they're easy and whatever, but we also do some difficult things, just like getting out of bed in the morning.
To be able to consistently wake up, roll out of bed at 6:30 with a decent attitude, make his bed, get his tent kind of cleaned up, and just get a good start to a day.
There's something amazing about waking up in the woods in the morning, and just everything is so cold it makes noises. You hear the floorboards creak in a special way, and the snow crunches under your feet.
After we've gotten out of bed in the morning, we have some very specific things that we do every day to make sure we're finished in our tent before we move on with our day. Before breakfast, we have campsite chores that we're going to do. We want to make sure that we rake every trail, have everything in its place. There's no debris along the trail that was there from last night. When we leave campsite in the morning, we take one last look over our shoulder and feel good about what we left behind.
Before I came to camp, my room was a wreck. My mom folded all my laundry, my sisters, they'd put it in my room and it would just stay on the floor. I had to pass through my room. And I remember when I came to camp, all of a sudden my mom's not here, so I had to fold my own laundry, and I had to keep my foot locker nice and organized. And I learned the importance of how that affects my attitude about the rest of the day.
I think boys here at camp get chances every day to practice that. Just getting up every morning and doing the same thing every morning, making our beds, packing a shower bag, getting ready for the day. And we just get a chance to do those things over and over again until we can feel like we're really successful at them. And I think that's a big part of a boy, just learning to just do the daily things, do the small things right, and learn to be faithful. There's many different ways that a boy Learn to become a man here at camp. One of them is just through hard work. We do a lot of hard work schedules around here, whether it's cutting down trees or lifting heavy beams in place, where it takes, you know, a whole group and everything they've got to do what needs to get done.
It's important for boys to learn to be men, have to learn to persist in difficult things, like to persist when you feel like quitting, to work hard when you don't want to. And I think that's part of what manhood is about, to do hard things.
Learn to work through hard problems and talk about hard things. We get a chance to do that every day around camp.
We're learning how to get along with the guy beside us, even if he kind of irritates us. Relationships are hard, probably some of the hardest things in life. And so camp is a lot about relationships, to persist in relationships.
You know, I think part of the fun is just the community and you know, things like the derby car race that we have going on coming up. That's a lot of fun for boys. He gets to participate in something that it's pretty simple, really. Just putting a car on a track and running down, but man, there's like something really gets you going. That's just like, man, it makes your heart come up into your throat. It even does it to me a little bit, even though I've done the derby car race several times.
Part of manhood is about relationships with other men and boys. And what I've noticed is that some of the best relationships around manhood is doing things that are just a little extreme, or a little bit like, some people will look at it and think, you're crazy. And so, you know, at camp we do saunas. Saunas would be one of those things where, you know, everybody kind of squeezes in this little tent and you get all steamed up, and then you go jump in freezing cold water.
Especially in the wintertime when you got to go down there and it's a cold winter day and there's ice on the pond, you got to chop the ice off the pond and make an opening that you can actually get in the water.
First thing you have to do a sauna is cut open the water. That is so you can refresh all the sweat out of your pores.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And feel revived. To emphasize how cold it is in the water, we took like layers of ice this thick off.
You go into the sauna tent for throwing water on bricks we've heated to a red hot temperature in the fire. The tent's full of steam.
And it gets so hot you wonder if you're going to survive it. That's when it's really getting good.
You have to, at this point, start yelling and singing and encouraging each other to stay in this steam-filled tent. The tension increases. Everybody's thinking about the moment when we're all going to run out of this hot tent and plunge into icy water. And then you do.
People look at that and say, that's nuts. But there's something that happens in our hearts and in our relationship with the people we're doing it with.
It was great. Fine. Wasn't that cold, surprisingly.
It's cold, but also warmer at the same time.
Funny little thing I thought about, though, on this question of manhood and difficulty. Our maintenance man here at camp, Grandpa Dolan, says this little phrase that I think maybe captures some of this idea pretty well. So when you ask him to fix something, he says something like this. Okay, the difficult stuff, I'll be right on it. The impossible things might take a little longer. But that's kind of the spirit of manhood, right? We're going to be cheerful and move forward and do the maybe impossible things.